Hey everybody, it's Heiden, and I'm back with a campaign update for you. No turn tonight. Macho said it needed some more time to work on it, and that's fine. But earlier today on my Discord server in my channel for this campaign, we were having a lengthy discussion about industry expansion, resources, oil, fuel, logistics, all that stuff. And I thought I would make a video to help kind of guide that conversation as far as it pertains to my campaign and what I'm doing with it. Now, full disclosure here, guys, I don't claim to be the best at the Japanese industry, expansions, all that stuff. This is like my second time playing Japan, and by far the farthest I've gotten into it, and it's only April of 1942. So I don't claim to be an expert on this. So I'm not here to tell you that this is the right way. I'm just here to show you what I'm doing. And I'm opening this up for your scrutiny and discussion, and maybe we can come up with better ways to do stuff than what I'm currently doing. So let's start with the review of Tracker right now. Right now on your screen, you should see the Warner Pacific chart under the industry data set. So if you take a look at what we got going on right now, we're running a pretty decent resource surplus in the Empire. Every day, we're making 28,000 more resources than we need to fully run our heavy and light industry. So it's just a matter of me getting these resources to the places they need to go, okay? Oil, we're running a 5,000 oil deficit per turn. So that's something that's really never going to get resolved, because even if I repaired all of the oil centers that I currently have that are disabled, it would only give me an additional 2,680 oil per day. So I'm never going to really fix that. It's just a matter of what places are going to run out of oil first. Not a big deal. This is a minor deficit. Overall, Arc Empire is currently producing 29,050 supply per day from all the sources, right? Oil refineries, heavy industry, and any bases that just make supply on their own, which I don't know if we even have any. So 29,000 supply per day. All right, so get a good look at everything here. Stop and screenshot it if you want. This is what we currently got going on. Also notice that we're making a surplus of 1,460 heavy industry points per day, which is, I guess, good. I don't know. Find out. Okay, let's take a look at probably my favorite tab, oil and resources. And I have these set up by regions. And right now, the most important one that I like to look at is Japan, which is the home islands. So I'm going to click on the resource history. And as you can see, we're doing pretty good here. We're up to 1,017,000 supply. That's actually really good. I'm basically hardly pulling any supply out of the home islands to send elsewhere. You can see I did it here and here a couple times. But for the most part, this stuff is when your industry is expanding. That's why it's so crazy low. But you start with 1.3 million in the home islands, and we're already back up to we're up to 1 million. So supply's doing good. I have some excess to send out. Fuel, I'm actually doing pretty good. I've been transferring some in from different places, and I'll show that to you. We have 2.3 million in the home islands, and we start the campaign with 2.5. So we got the fuel under control. Resources, we start with 5 million. I built that up to 7.1 million, and I've said this before, but the resources are the hardest thing to keep stocked up in the home islands, right? Because if you look up here, the home islands run an almost 80,000 per day deficit of resources, just with all of the light and heavy industry that it's got. So it's a real struggle to get enough resources into the home islands to keep that running. But I've done it, and I'm able to build up a substantial reserve. We start off with like 70, and I'm up to 84, and that doesn't sound like a lot. It's taken me 5 months to get to this point, almost, to get 14 days of surplus. So it's resources are a big pain in the butt, guys. All right, so now that you see what we're working with here, let me show you my current setup for how everything works. So we'll start at the very top, Sakhalin. Sakhalin has a little bit of oil and a lot of resources, okay? The problem with Sakhalin is you're limited by port capacity. So Toyohara which is the closest base to Sapporo, currently has a port size of 3, and I'm trying to expand it, but it's going slowly. Shikuka has a port size of 4. It goes up to 6, which would be good. I can get that up to 8. The problem is that I need the engineers to do it, and they're busy with Toyohara. So I'm wondering if maybe I'm going about this the wrong way, and I need to move engineer assets to Shikuka, expand that port, and just abandon using Toyohara entirely. Because all of the resources and stuff will flow up to Shikuka. They're connected, right? But you know, I now that I'm sitting here talking about this, I think I may have the wrong approach here. All right, so I'm sitting here looking at this, and I think I've got the wrong idea. I've been expanding the port at Toyohara when I probably should be expanding the port at Shikuka, because that would definitely increase the amount of ships that I can move in and out of there. So I think what I'm going to do on the next turn is take these engineer units and shift them all up to Shikuka and expand this port up to as far as I can get it. And I have additional engineer assets I can send in here. I think we need to go to port size 8 on Shikuka and just accept the additional distance to travel. But that might be better. So currently I have a couple CS convoys coming out of here and a couple coming out of here. I've got 12 speed ships coming from here and going down to Sapporo. And I've got the 10 speed ships coming at Toyohara and going into Wakkanai, with the intent that those resources flow down to this base, which is, I forget, what is it? Oh, Hakodate. And then I transfer them across that way. But I think I need to cut back on the double handling of stuff. So currently what I'm doing here is probably not the most efficient thing. I'm taking resources out of here and dumping them at Wakkanai and Sapporo and going back. But sometimes my convoys stack up on top of each other because they have a quick round trip. I think what I'm going to do then is use my 10 speed ships from here and have them go down to Hirosaki, and take my 12 speed ships from here and have them go down to Hirosaki because I don't use that port as much. And we'll stop dropping some stuff off at Sapporo and Wakkanai. Now, I've been doing that to keep these ships moving out, and we'll get to that, but I don't think that's the most efficient thing to do at this point. Somebody told me on my Discord, no, it was Admiral Yamaguchi. He said no double handling merchandise or resources, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. And that's not maybe the best thing. And also, if I do that, I can get larger convoys going and have a rotation. So have one standing by here, and then as this one loads up and leaves, I immediately start loading that one. So they're doing 1-for-1 50-50 swaps, and then I can double the amount of convoys coming out of here. It's going to be a longer round trip for them, but who cares if I have two convoys kind of going nonstop, and we're cutting out a step here, right? We're cutting out the unloading and the reloading in these places, and I can just use the ports that are larger anyway in Home Island. So wow, I can't believe I'm just now figuring that out. I feel kind of stupid. All right, so that's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to move engineer assets from Toyohara up to Shikuka, expand that to size 8 so I can get bigger convoys coming out of here. And then we'll use smaller convoys out of Toyohara because we can only basically accommodate 24,000 tons of shipping at any given time. Wow, I can't believe I didn't think of that. All right, moving on. That problem's been solved. I'm going to fix that. Okay, at Hokkaido, I have task forces going from Sapporo down to Hirosaki, and a lot of them going from here to Ominato. And the reason being is I'm running out of port capacity at these bases, but the other reason that might be is I have a lot of task forces here, but because they're also handling the resources coming out of Sakhalin, right? I'm dumping them here, which means I need more lift capacity out of here. If I cut these guys out and go straight into here, I can reduce the amount of convoys having to go back and forth there. So I'm kind of glad that I'm doing this video because I'm seeing some inefficiencies here with what I'm doing. And a lot of times you'll see here, I run out of port capacity for these ships. I'm using a combination of 10 and 12 speed, mostly 10 speed ships here because they have such a short round trip. And I'm using a lot of Gozen, the Gozon cargos and the Daigen cargos because they're just small ships with low speeds, and I don't need big ships doing this, right? Because we have a very short turnaround here. But I think what I'm going to do here is eliminate one of these task forces entirely so that we have the ones that we have here can always dock. And I won't need that because I'll have these guys coming straight into Japan and not dumping off at Hokkaido. I have a chain right now, which isn't good. These guys go to here, and then we have to lift it again to Japan. What I'm going to do is have these guys just come straight down here. That's going to work out better. But most of my stuff comes between Hakodate and Ominato, or one or two task forces going from Sapporo to Hirosaki, which I'm going to try to eliminate as much of that as possible. I also have one very small tanker task force coming into Shikuka and pulling off just a little bit of oil at a time because there's not much there to begin with. Same thing as Sapporo. It only makes about 10 oil on the entire island, which is 100 oil a day. So I only use a single little 12-speed task, these little guys. I'm using 2 of these for Sakhalin and using 1 of them for Sapporo, just pulling out just the trickle of oil that we can get out of here. It's not much. All right, so that takes care of that stuff, and I've already found some inefficiencies there that I'm going to fix. Next is one of my primary sources of resources, which is the Fusan extraction site. We go from Fusan to Fukuoka and Shimonoseki. I haven't split the go both places. I'm running about 5 task forces here and 1 tanker task force pulling fuel out of Port Arthur because we have a lot of fuel at Lanchao and a lot of fuel at Xi'an, and it's it's a kind of surplus. So I'm pulling some out of Manchukuo right now to relocate into home islands, but I'm going to stop this in the near future because I don't want to drain too much. I'll need it for the heavy industry in this area. But if you guys ever heard of the Silk Road or the Golden Road, it's basically this. And some people are able to make it work further than I am, but this is what I got. Basically, how it works for me and the way I have things set up is everything from Hanoi all through China flows to Fusan, particularly the resources, because that's what I'm pulling the hardest, right? So everything here flows through the road connections, right? All the way down to Fusan. So I don't need to run any other CS task forces out of Hong Kong, Shanghai, Port Arthur. I don't do any of that, okay? It all comes out of Fusan. Everything gets extracted and put in here, all right? The game manages your resources, and it keeps enough stocked up to run what it's got to run. So if you look at Shanghai, it's got 10,000 resources in here. That's because it stockpiles enough to keep things going for a few days. I could pull that out, but there's no need because the game will send any excess resources out. It's not going to keep more than it needs for its minimum requirements. Same thing in Hong Kong, right? 17,000 there. It's not keeping any more than it has to keep to run what it's got there. So all that flows down to Fusan, and it comes in pushes. Let me show you what that looks like. So if we could look at the base of Fusan, right? Oop, let me clear this out. You'll see how these pushes work. Resource history. Okay, resources. Sorted by turn. You see how at Fusan you get these big increases and then you get these drawdowns. and you have an increase, a drawdown. And that's what's happening in my game right now. We get a push, and then my ships extract it. They pull it out. Okay? Then in a few days, I get another push of resources from all of China where it's just flowing in, and then my ships pull it out. So that's how that works at Fusan, right? It's automated. I don't have to do anything. So that's working good for me. So I have no other need in mainland China to do anything else except pull stuff out of Fusan, and that's all I'm doing. Okay, let's talk about some other stuff that I'm doing. And this is where I'm starting to get in the weeds with some things. Because I feel like the resource shortage that I have is so extreme. I'm running all kinds of stuff right now. So I have a CS task force running out of Amami Oshima and Okinawa, and I'm bringing a single ships are bringing resources to Nagasaki from here. I also have a CS convoy for resources out of Taihoku going to Nagasaki and oil. So 2 coming out of Taihoku. Okay? So I'm extracting all the resources I possibly can from these bases here. Because if you look, Amami Oshima, well, let's clean this up. Amami Oshima has 20 resource production. So that's, what, 400 a day? It's like 400 a day, I think. Well, you know what? Let's see. Resource center. Yeah, 400 a day. That's not insignificant. So I'm pulling that out, and also at Naha, which is on Okinawa, we make another 400 a day. So I am pulling that out of there, and every little bit of this stuff contributes to the home islands. Taihoku, right? We make 150 resources a day times 20. That's a couple thousand a day, right? Some of it's used to fuel the light industry at Takao, but a lot of it goes surplus. So I have a task force. Here it is. Look at that. This is one of my CS task forces, which has a capacity of about 24,000. And that more or less keeps up with the excess here, because it takes about 5 days to make this, maybe 5 or 6 days to make this round trip. And while I'm doing that, it refills itself. So, and I have a single tanker pulling oil out of Taihoku because it doesn't make a lot. A small tanker. All right, so that's this. Now let's go out into the South Pacific where I have more resource extraction going on. I have CS convoys operating out of both Nauru and Ocean Island, right? Because there's resources here too, and I've been pulling them out for some time. They go up. Let me show you this. They go up to from Nauru and Ocean. I have a convoys going to Eniwetok, and that's what I've been using as my focal point. So pulling them out of here, dropping them off at Eniwetok because of the distances involved, right? I don't think it's a good idea to ship these resources straight to Japan and back, because the ships burn up a lot of fuel doing that. And so they're going to run out of gas. So I go into Eniwetok, and as you can see, I've already got a bit of a surplus here. I keep fuel stocked up here to keep these ships fueled up, but I have ships dropping off and ships loading up. And from here, I have about 2 CS convoys going back and forth from Eniwetok back to Yokohama. And you can probably see... Okay, that's a tanker task force bringing fuel back from there. And then one of my cargo task forces is here, unloading these resources from Eniwetok. So I have... That's where I'm grabbing from here. Nauru and Ocean to Eniwetok. And at Eniwetok, we have a revolving set of CS task forces going to Yokohama. Now, here's some really convoluted stuff. I got a not ideal operation going on Mindanao right now. So here, bear with me. And this, when I told people about this on my Discord, they were really not thrilled with this. They didn't love it. So here's what I'm doing. I am using the vow temporarily as a sub, like a drop-off point. So here's what I got. I have Balikpapan, Terracan to Deval. I have Makassar and Kendari. Now these are sized appropriately, okay? To Deval. I also now or will have Bula and Babo to Deval. Okay. So all of these these are all the bases in the Dutch East Indies on the east side that produce something worthwhile to me. And I am shipping it all into Davao. But wait, there's more. Zamboanga, I pull resources out of there and ship it to Davao. Then I also have these bases here all produce resources, or most of them, and all of these go to either Butuan or Cagayan, right? I have between these 4 or 5 places, they go to Butuan and Cagayan, and from there, those resources get packaged up and sent to Davao, and where I have CS convoys that go from here back up to the home islands. This is a mess, but I'm using Davao as the primary focal point for all of these smaller operations. Now, this is temporary because long term, I'd like to maybe use Manila as that operation. But the problem is that I don't have Bataan yet, and we have a minefield here and fortresses that I don't want to traverse. So I'm kind of stuck here, and I would love all of these places to either go directly to the home islands or dump into Manila. And from Manila, I can get some major CS convoys going from here to the home islands, right? So long-term plan here, guys, is to not use Davao for all of this. I kind of want to shift it up to Manila. So all the home island stuff, or all the Philippine Island extraction stuff here to Manila, and from Manila back to the home islands. Terracan and Balikpapan fuel is eventually going to be used, not the way it's being used, but I'm going to start shipping it down to Rabaul. And these 2 bases are going to fuel basically the Pacific Theater, the entire Pacific Theater, right? And any excess oil out of Balikpapan and Terracan, I do want to ship back to the home islands, but I do want to do it in larger convoys. So I'll probably use smaller tankers to take this stuff to Manila. So here's the long-term plan. We're not going to use Mindanao for double handling per se. I'm just going to take all of this stuff, Terracan oil and supply stuff. We'll head south to the South Pacific, and the rest of this stuff here will head up to Manila and be shipped home. Now, I do also have Babo Bula, right? I'll probably have these guys start going into Babel. And if in Babel, I'll ship it in larger tankers up. So there's oil here that I want to get home. So I'll do that. And there's also resources at Bula. Okay. So these resources, I haven't quite figured out what to do with them yet. I'm thinking, for the simplicity's sake, I'll have another task force with resources going to Java. All right. So let's talk about resources now. Down here. Guys, I know this is complicated. Makassar, Kendari, and Kolaka all produce resources here. So these 3 bases and Bula have resources. So what I'm going to do is have these guys eventually go into Surabaya only and not go up to Davao. This is inefficient. The more I look at it, I don't like it. So I'm going to have Kandari and Makassar go into Surabaya, and from Surabaya, I'll ship the resources to Singapore. And I'm kind of going around in a big circle here, guys, but I want to show you why. We're almost at the end of this. Okay, so Surabaya is actually a pretty decent base for stockpiling stuff. There is a fuel surplus here, and what I have been doing is collecting resources at Surabaya, oil and fuel, and shipping it to Singapore. Okay. I'm also taking resources from Banjarmasin, sending it to Surabaya. Ketapang, Billiton, Tobali, Singkep, all of these bases produce resources, right? So these guys all go into Singapore. Single ship task forces, because they only produce like 400 a day. So I'm using single ship task forces to move all of these resources. They're all going into Singapore, guys. So that's the... Also Pontianak. Did I say Ketapang? I meant Pontianak. Not Ketapang. All these little bases that have resource production are either going to come into Surabaya and go up, or these bases go directly into Singapore. Okay, and you can see those in action right now. Like these guys are going in, these guys are going in, that guy. And right now I've been using escorts for these ships. I think I'm going to go ahead and cut the escorts out because we've got this whole area more or less secured right now. He's not sending submarines into this place for now. We've pushed him far enough away that he's not wasting his time with his subs. So for the time being, until I see a credible threat, anything inside this line here, I'm not intending to escort for the time being. Now, if we start running into... If it's a multi-ship task force, I'll probably do so. But single ship stuff, I'm not going to waste an escort on that. Now, we've talked about that. Let's talk about the top part of Borneo. I have a CS convoy pulling fuel out of Brunei to Singapore. I have another CS convoy pulling supplies from Miri to Singapore. Okay, that's what I'm doing with those two. Now, Singapore is a hub for a lot of stuff. Let me show you kind of what we got going on here. I'm currently using Medan, and I'm pulling both oil and fuel out of Medan to Georgetown. And then down here is Palembang, and this is where my big problem is right now. Palembang only has a maximum port size of 4, which severely limits the amount of tankers and transports that I can have docked here. Now, if you're not loading up... If you're not... okay. What I'm trying to say is fuel and liquids load very, very, very slowly if they're not docked. Now, unlike resources, supplies, troops, and the rest of that stuff, liquid transport does not benefit from naval support. Troops, equipment, supplies, resources, all that stuff gets a bonus of 5 units extra per naval support unit. So this one would give you an extra 300 units of loading. 5 times 8, 30. What is that? 35? 30. Oh my gosh. 32. No. 40. 400 extra. Jeez, I can't do math. I'm sorry. But they do not help you. Naval support does not help you when you're loading up fuel and oil. So you have to dock to get any reasonable transfer rate out of it. But because the Palembang port's so small, I can only send in one real task force at a time to do that. So what I'm going to do, since we're already pulling out of Medan as much as we possibly can with the port size being what it is, I'm going to open up another terminal here at Oosthaven and ship oil and fuel back to Singapore that way. Now, this is only a port size 3. I can't expand it to a 4, and it will pull some fuel and oil out of Palembang so we can ship it back to Singapore. The reason that I'm doing Singapore for everything is it has a huge port, right? Size 9. And as you can see, it can accommodate a lot of traffic. currently, what I got going on at Singapore is that's one. I have 2 fuel task forces sending fuel from Singapore back to the home islands. So this is the first one. Okay. This one uses 18 and 19 speed tankers because they're fast. I like the speed there. It's a quicker round trip. This one does 59,000 fuel a day or per trip. And I have another task force here, another tanker task force. This one has more tankers in it, my 18 and 19 speed tankers. And this one holds 136,000. So every week or two, I'm moving a couple 100,000 fuel from Singapore back to home islands. I also have a total of 3 resource task forces that move resources from Singapore back to the home islands. And that's why I have all the resources dumping into here. Also, any resources that are in Thailand, Malaya, all that stuff, they basically flow back down into Singapore. Hanoi flows towards Fusan. The rest of the stuff flows down into Singapore, including up here in Burma. So that's why I use Singapore to move fuel and resources. Additionally, I've been stockpiling some oil here too. So I've got about 90,000 oil here that I need to find the tankers for to move that back to the home islands too. I do want to ship fuel back to the home islands. It's not super critical, but on the home islands, we do have some refinery capacity. And if you look at our, if you recall our chart, and this again, I did have some people disagreeing with me about the necessity of moving oil back to the home islands. I wanted to do it because we still have refineries on the home islands. Oil and reservoir. All right, there we go. Where's the fuel? We're still producing fuel here, right? 8,000 a day, and the fuel refineries also produce supply. And I want every little ounce of supply I can get as Japan. So I will be shipping oil back to the home islands just to keep that going. We have a large surplus, as you can see. It's not critical yet. I have 260 days of oil left in the home islands, and that's not bad. I want more. So there you go. That's basically my entire logistics chain right now, and I know that there's room for improvement there. As far as Rangoon goes, I'm not currently pulling any of the fuel and oil out of here. I want the fuel for use in the Bay of Bengal. Some of it is flowing down to Singapore anyway, which is fine, but a lot of it is kind of hanging out here at Rangoon, and that's good too. We have a lot of fuel and oil coming out of Magway, and we have a lot of refinery capacity at Rangoon. So Rangoon is more or less keeping pace with supply needs in Burma, and it's giving me the fuel I need to keep my task forces fueled up in the Bay of Bengal. So I'm not pulling anything out of here that isn't already flowing on its own. Rangoon is supplying all of this. And I do have Lido, but this is not a long hold to me. I feel like at any day now he's going to bomb this into the ground. So I don't count on the oil and the fuel from Lido doing much of anything for me. It will eventually pull over here in Chittagong. But with Calcutta being a big threat to me, I'm not exactly excited about running CS convoys out of here. Anyway, that's my industry logistics setup right now. Again, I know it's convoluted and there's room for improvement. I've already talked myself into some improvement items right now. So I'm going to start implementing those next turn. But if you have any recommendations for me, by all means, come over to my Discord and join the discussion, because don't talk to me in YouTube comments about this stuff, guys. I'll answer little brief stuff, but if you write me a novel in there, I'm probably not going to read it very well because it's just not the best way to communicate. If you want to communicate with me, come over to Discord, okay? And come over to my Combined Fleet channel and this is the conversation we were having today about industry. Look at how long it went. Guys, we were having a great chat today about this. And if you want to get in on this, come over and join us because there's a lot to say and I need your input because I'm not an expert on this at all. So help me become an expert. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll get back to turn production tomorrow. Bye-bye.